Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara. Morning, Dave. How are you doing?
Morning. Not too bad.
Yeah, so I'm going to put the last thing that you showed me yesterday. Roberta Flack dies softly with her song. Sorry, I had to make that play on words because she had this song called "Killing Me Softly," which I always remember most of her songs.
Yeah, that was a song written by a Scottish folk singer, McCall, I think his name was.
Maybe, yep,
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, and
yep.
uh, it didn't become famous until Clint Eastwood used it in one of his movies, "Play Misty for Me." So it was already out, but Clint Eastwood, I think he's a
I think
music.
that was a different song, wasn't it? The first time ever I saw your face.
The song there
Oh,
that song I think is McCall's song.
that's Ewan McCall's song, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, I misread that. I misread that sentence. Okay, yeah, yeah. Killing Me Softly, okay, is what she used in Play Misty for me, yeah.
Well, that's what Clint Eastwood. That song was already out, but it really didn't chart until Clint Eastwood used it in his movie.
Yeah.
That's what's got its exposure. It's a fabulous song. It's I don't know. It's a terrific song. I think I've heard the McCall original uh, a few times, but I can't right now. I can't recall what it was like. But it was more of a folk song,
Yeah.
and she took that song. And Roberta Flack was not one of those composer singers that are so prominent since the Beatles began. When the Beatles began, they started writing their own songs, and thereafter, just about every band, almost every band thereafter, had to have their own originals.
Well, when I was growing up, and a budding musician, yeah, uh, I wanted to play the drums, wanted to be in a band. The thing I always said with anybody we spoke to was, "Hey, do you play your own music? You know, we might expect you in the pub scene to play other people's songs, but when it comes to actually, if you want to make it in the industry, you had to play your own, write your own music."
Yes. Now this is different because the Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Stones, all those began their careers by covering other people's tunes,
Yeah,
and they began to write their own tunes in that place. But they set the trends thereafter because they wrote their own particular tunes that just exploded. Like "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and "Heart of Stone" by the Rolling Stones and things of that kind.
just to let you know, Gary's saying he can't make it uh, to today. Okay.
Okay, Gary, no problem, man. That means you have to buy me 20 wings instead of 10, so that's okay.
Okay. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Gary. Good morning, all. Well, Roberta Flack, we were talking about Roberta Flack, whom I really like, and she was an interpretive singer. She uh, she hit that wall where people were saying, "Huh, well, you don't write your own tunes," but she was an interpretive singer who took somebody else's work and interpreted. In the
But
old
she,
days, a songwriter would write songs for artists and then present them to them. Even
but
David
she was
Bowie did that with groups like Mott the Hoople, and he'd say, "Here's a song for you." The Beatles even wrote a song and gave it to the Rolling Stones, which was their first hit. It's
Yeah.
just kind of funny with that rivalry going on. The Beatles are the ones that launched the career to their biggest rivals, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, well, but the thing is that actually,
You froze up, my friend.
American artists didn't always write their own song. That was something that, I don't know. The British artists seem to be hot. British seem to be demand that they wrote their own songs. The Americans didn't seem to in that era, for whatever reason. Dave?
Am I back now?
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, she was an interpretive singer. She was the real deal as a musician, though. Her quest, her what she wanted to do was become a concert pianist to play Bach and Chopin and Schumann. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, to make money, she would get into bands and do the shoe-up, do-diddy type songs that were,
But
you.
apparently, the shoe up diddy type things were actually the ways that they used to train their voice as a classical singer.
I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but anyway, she made money doing that, and because she was what I didn't know until I read this, was that she was a concert pianist, and that was her original goal. But
Yeah.
because she had such a special kind of delivery on a tune, like she's specific, I guess you should compare it to guys like Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, those people who have a very unique voice or way of delivering a song, that she kind of got pigeonholed into that, but it was making her money and she was doing well. And I guess I don't know how that, of course, would have interfered with her objective, her early objective, to be a concert pianist and play Bach.
Yeah.
So you would think
She
this,
probably made more money doing R&B than she would ever have made being a concert pianist.
yeah, quite possibly, and because she had a unique way of delivering a song and had a unique voice, and "Killing Me Softly" was probably her best tune because when I heard it, I thought to myself, I love the lyrics for one, and the way she put those lyrics together. I thought when she sang that song, it must have been hers because it was so believable. It was something that that was performed so well. I thought it was hers, but what she did was make it hers,
Yeah.
and so I thought that was pretty cool.
It's becoming to a point where there aren't many left. Classic rock musicians, classic, the people who influenced us when we were young.
Yes, and what's happened to the music industry is not good. They have synthesized a whole lot of
Yeah.
beats and things like that. So the originality is being pulled out of music these days.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
that's because of the industry and how it can how it can generate hits. So it has pretty much blocked the originality of a lot of artists because the music industry has synthesized what it needs to have a hit, what it instructs its artists on what to do. So there's the more and more of originality is taken out of it. Individual guitar players, drummers, trumpet players, even whatever, is taken out of it and formalized almost into an equation. I watch a fellow by the name of Rick Beato once in a while, a renowned uh, a renowned interviewer of musicians, because he himself is a super accomplished musician originally from the Rochester area. And if you know anything about Rochester, it always had a pretty good, vibrant band. When I heard that a Rochester band was coming to, let's say, the Imperial Garage in Niagara Falls, New York, I was sure to be there because the Rochester groups had were famous for particularly R&B flavored music, but they were always pretty good. And that's where this fellow Rick Beato, you can find him on YouTube, is interviews of all kinds of artists are very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And he synthesizes what to use that word synthesize in another form is he synthesizes what's happening to the music industry today. The industry is taking the originality out of it. Now, we've been here before because the music industry was controlling the types of music that was being delivered on the pop charts until Elvis came along. Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and those guys exploded the music, and the industry lost control of it for a while, and then they regained control of it after Elvis went into the army and Jerry Lee Lewis humiliated himself by marrying his 13-year-old cousin. So he, like those guys, got out of it. And then the Beatles came along, and they couldn't hold it down again. Like the Beatles took off. They introduced the British invasion. The British invasion influenced American artists, and the music industry for a time lost complete control over by the time mid to late 60s coming on, the music industry lost creative control over its artists. And Frank Zappa was pretty clear about that himself. He'd say something like, you get the old stogie smoking old dude of a record producer who knew nothing about music and knew that he knew nothing about music, and say, okay, write your tunes, play your tunes, and give it to me. A little later on, the more sophisticated record executives would try to analyze the music and restrict music to a certain type so that they control it better. And that's happening today, basically. And because of Spotify gives such paltry returns on their music play, this has affected the bands. Plus, you can't record a piece of music without it getting out into the internet without having to pay for it. So artists are quite often left with nothing to do but to make money by touring.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing. I think it's affecting black music more than anything, if that still is a kind of a category. Because if you listen to black music, it's all got all the same riffs, it's got all the same drum backgrounds, it's got everything the same. And
well, I know of some music. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There are certainly some some artists that seem to have just the same melody for every song they use.
Yeah, and that's because they have to take direction from those producers.
Yeah.
So I don't know the extent of it, but there you have a person like Roberta Flack who was able to take somebody else's music, interpret it beautifully, and she had musical wherewithal like no one else. I mean, being a concert pianist herself, and I don't know. Yeah, we'll miss artists like that, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is that, okay, Karen said the big recording studios used to have songwriting pools, and that's how Rick Rose started.
Oh, I didn't know that he was part of a songwriting pool. I do know that he wrote songs.
Yeah.
But he also had a band.
It's a way to learn. It's a way to learn how to write a song, right?
Some people have a knack for it.
Yeah.
Like for instance, George Harrison took a while to get his feet on the ground, and yet in the top. So he was the lesser writer of the Beatles, but right now, the 10 top songs, Beatles songs that are played continually, George Harrison has two of the biggest, first and third, I think.
Yeah.
The second one.
The point being is you've got to learn your trade somewhere, right?
Yes.
Rick took advantage of that, clearly.
Yes, he did, and he was an accomplished performer.
Yeah.
Which added to his luster.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, we miss Rick.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our normal what we normally deal with. So the German elections were won by the Christian Democrats, but they need the far right AfD to actually take power because they've got 208 seats, and they need to get 50%. They are quite a bit short. They're 28.5% of the seats, and you've got 20.8% by AFD. So they need AFD to reach the 51%.
They're not going to use AFD. They're not going to use
they need somebody anyway, because
they won't use the AFD. They'll use the next largest party.
Well, then that's SDP, but CDU and SDP doesn't make a majority on its own, I don't believe.
None of the German parties are willing to have a government that includes the AFD.
Yeah, none. Right. Yeah. Well, you're going to end up with...
Let's put it this way. The AFD is a far-right party.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, we know. The issue here is that in order for CDU to make the government, they got 208 seats. They need to get to they're a long way short of the 50%. They're at 28.5. SPD is 16.4, so they're not quite going to make the 50% with those two parties.
They I think there's a way for them to combine with with one party, but it is essential that, well, in their minds, it's essential that no one aligns with the AFD. The AFD is a far right party that is scaring people. It's a populist party, and if you look at the election map of Germany. The old East Germany, the whole of the old East Germany voted for the AFD,
with the exception of one area to the west of Frankfurt.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out where that area is, but it's west of Frankfurt. It's not actually Frankfurt.
Yes, but if you look at a map, if you look at a map quickly, you would think it was an old map of West Germany and East Germany.
Yeah. Oh no, I know.
It's actually an electoral map. Now, what is driving the AFD? The AFD is driven by mostly immigration. Germany has brought in 3.5 million immigrants and lots of refugees. We remember that Angela Merkel brought in 1 million Syrians. Ever since that time, it's been trying to get rid of them because they make up more of the crime, and crime has gone up, all kinds of things. Also, what is stressing the German people right now is economic loss. They're fighting hard against the Chinese. They can't sell their own electric cars for a profit. And the Chinese are kind of swamping the market. So there's a lot of stresses on the Germans right now. When you have a combination of unwanted immigrants, well, many Germans feel they're unwanted. We've had some terrorist attacks of late in Germany as well, which doesn't help matters. That's driving the AfD. So what I would say, the populist movement is partly a result of the failure of the more centrist parties. And the left-leaning party, particularly the last party, that's the analyst of if you look at the analyst of the politics or the results, that's a big driver. So you have an economy and unwanted immigrants. What are you going to get? You're going to get.
I just was looking at the area in which the AfD in West Germany, the area in which AfD made their biggest advances, and it's around the Mainz-Wiesbaden area in the Rhineland. In the Rhineland, so heavily industrial, that kind of area, and ironically, one of the areas whereby there was a far right politician from there in the 80s. Right, so it has a far right history in the post Second World War far right history.
Oh yeah, this is a party that goes way back, but never really gained a whole lot of currency. Very much um, a little bit different from Le Pen's party in France, who was a marginal party for a very long time, but had a core group of supporters for many years. But it's exploded too, and it's threatening uh, France's democracy, so they say. But the problem is, I believe that the parties up until this time have created their own problem by not addressing immigration, and we find that everywhere, don't we? Sweden is Sweden, which used to be one of the most peaceful countries in the world, is now one of the most violent for gangs, and almost all of those gangs come from recent immigrants.
Yeah.
They are so desperate. They're paying recent immigrants $30,000 if they're willing to move out of the country.
Yeah.
So and the amount of money they have to use to try to integrate those immigrants. All the Germany too, their crime has gone up. France's crime has gone up. So the problem here is the same. It was unfortunately it was un the parties allowed immigration without sort of oversight. They could have had immigration, really good immigration, as we had prior to the Trudeau years, where we had regular immigration and people coming into the country, establishing themselves well, and not and being slowly integrated into the country. Well, this is not happening in Europe, and we've had great difficulty with it here. And of course, the United States has massive problems with illegals and other immigrants coming into the country. So this is a common thread. And what is the?
Of course, that's why the far right have been making these gains.
That's right. That's why they have been making it.
Yeah.
And we find
they got 20.8% of the vote when it all was said and done.
Yeah, and the other right, the center right party, I believe, got 30% or nearly 30%.
20 CDU, which is like our Conservative Party, got 28.5.
So they're going to have come up with a coalition, and all the parties in Germany have agreed with themselves that they will shut out the AfD in any government, which could backfire on them. But
I think it will. I think it will end up backfiring because it might, because I think just about, I revised what I said earlier. I think CDU plus SPD could just about make a government. I think they've just got the votes required, but I don't really see. I don't really see those two don't get along. CDU and SPD don't get along.
Well, they're going to have to find a way of doing that.
Right, and the Greens don't have enough. And again, the Greens don't have enough to bring them to 50%.
Well, yeah, the Greens have done really badly this time around.
Yeah,
it's interesting to note that every party, including the AfD, are disappointed in their results, even though this is the best result the AfD has ever had.
Yeah. They wanted to take power. They really did. They felt they were on advance to take power. The AfD did.
Yeah, and Alice Weidel is the leader of the AfD party, and she's an openly gay woman who lives with another woman with children, and she lives in Switzerland, which is kind of odd for us, where somebody lives in a different country and is running for the top job.
Yeah.
She's not even living in the EU. She's an ultra conservative, very far right wing woman, very much like Le Pen in France. Well, of course, Le Pen is not gay but here you have these women leaders that it seems extraordinary to us that they would be the hard right of any leaders of any hard right party. Like a openly gay woman is the leader of the hard right party in Germany. It seems like the way conservative politics traditionally used, they almost nearly always shut out women to begin with, and yet their leaders now are women, and hard ass women too. But anyway, we'll have to see what's going to happen there. But that's just an indication. It shows you where the democracies are going these days. We don't have children, so we depend on immigration, and then when we do overdo immigration, then there's problems of
yeah.
I don't know. I can't see anymore.
There's been a lot. One of the target countries for, I'd say probably in Europe, those that are leaving the decimated parts of the world, whether that be the Middle East, Africa, or whatever, the target countries in Europe have tended to be UK, number one, Germany, number two, and France, number three.
Yeah, UK is a big one.
Yeah, the streets. There's still a vision that the London streets are paved with gold, which of course they're not.
Well, it looks like I think most of the migrants think if they get to England, it might be a jumping off point to get them somewhere else too.
That's a possibility, but I think there's a lot of people who still believe that England is what it used to be under the colonial days.
Well, they're rounding up illegals in Britain now.
I know.
It's very, very similar to what the ICE is doing in the U.S. right now. They're rounding up illegals and sending them back.
Yeah. They've got, you see, the British population along with everybody else. And as you say, it's a problem that has become prevalent. Parties like AFD, openly racist, openly, openly just anti anything. Than if you were, the purest German in the way that Hitler used to be. I'm not saying that they're anywhere near what Hitler would be in terms of it's like, well, Hitler was anti-gay for one, right? But the point being,
he used gay guys to get to the top, though. I mean,
yeah.
And then after he got to the top, he had what is called the Night of the Long Knives, where he then just killed off anyone in a party he didn't like anymore. They found not useful anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Including Ernst Rune.
Yeah. And the point being is that the point being is that the far right treated with a bit of derision right now, but but the way that they're coming to power is, as you say, AFD, it's the largest they've ever done, but they expected more. All right. I think there's a lot of fear about right-wing groups like the AFD, but even left-wing groups like the left bloc here and BSW, which no, not BSW, left-wing populists are both looking at limiting immigration.
Well, right now they set up the problem for themselves. The governments that were left of center or slightly right to center or in the previous years set up this problem. Like Merkel let in a million Syrians. Well, what are a million Syrians how are they going to blend into Germany? They're almost all of them were Muslims, almost all of them probably rural people or people of a completely different culture. How are they going to blend into Germany? If the Germans brought in a million Ukrainians, the Ukrainians would take much less time blending in, but in any case, the problem is stemming from poor immigration policies. That seems to be one of the biggest drivers here.
Okay, and Mike asked a valid question. What percentage do you think the vote will be for the Ontario election? I'm going to plump on this, Mike, 39.5%.
What for the PCs?
No, for the Ontario election.
Well, people coming out and voting?
Turnout.
Turnout. Yeah, you might not get a very good turnout because you really, unless you know your own particular candidate in your own area.
Who wants to vote this time of year?
Yeah, you might vote for the person that you like in your area, but you won't be voting for a party because the Liberals and the NDP are so weighed down and so unelectable right now as a party because they can't seem to get their act together.
I heard a Bonnie Crombie advert in the last 24 hours, and I'm like thinking, well, that's all she's got to say.
That's the same thing I thought. It's the same old tropes. She blamed Ford for everything that everyone else has blamed the federal government for, and the federal government thereafter blames all the problems on what's happening in the world. So like, yeah, it's pretty weak. She's going to get crushed. So are the NDP. I'm more interested in our own particular race, where I guess it's a bit of a horse race now, according to the polls, as you said yesterday. But I still anticipate Gates will probably win in the end. The Liberal candidate here has just got nothing.
Yeah. Well, and actually, we'll get to. Okay, well, let's deal with that. Gates, with the Gates situation, we can deal with that as the Liberal candidate is basically saying that Gates was stooping too low for bringing up the fact that she had previously made a donation to the PCs.
Seriously. So Gates, who is NDP, and his the Liberal rival, who hasn't got a chance in hell, who was parachuted in here from a different jurisdiction, who's never lived down here, doesn't know what Niagara is all about.
No.
And she is saying that he stooped low by revealing that she has given donations to the Conservative Party
in the past. Well, good for her, right? Yeah. Good for her. I'm not going to criticize her for having given donations to the Conservative Party. She's a right to change her mind.
She hasn't changed her mind. She says she gives to anyone that happens to be in a family. So what she says about this, well, I gave it to a family member or friend. That's why I gave them the money, nearly $1,000. And Gates, and I don't blame Gates for questioning her politics. If you're handing out money to the Conservative Party, and then you pretend to be a liberal, but you said that you would give money to any friend that you had in politics, does that mean you would vote for that friend, even if they're a PC?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
I get where he's coming from. I think it's a bit of a low blow.
I don't think so. I think all things are open in politics. I think it's a pretty typical political move by Gates. Hey, wait a minute. I'm competing with this person, and this person doesn't seem to be a dyed-in-the-wool liberal.
Well, Randy basically is saying that she's trying to buy herself a position in any party that will take her. Okay. I accept that view. That's fine.
I object to the fact that she feels that family is more important than the politics of the era. So if, like I said, if she's given money to a family member or a friend that happens to be a conservative candidate for the Conservatives, then would she vote for that too.
Well, I think she's not going to get many votes. Her voting's going down from now on anyway. And basically, it's between Novosteg and Gates.
Yeah. So this is another reason why. I mean, the Liberals can't even come up with a candidate, and they know this election. And you can say, "Well, it's a quick snap election." No, we knew this was coming for a very long time.
Yeah.
Ford telegraphed this over and over and over again, that there was going to be election. So if you were not prepared with a candidate in this area, well, what is wrong with you, Liberals?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? You could have prepared for this a long time ago. You could have got some of your best people out there, to run against them, and you may not have won, but you.
Well, I was only about 3 or 4 nominations short on standing for Ontario Alliance. But it is what it is, right? And I do thank those people who put their name on the nomination form.
Well, I don't think you would have had much of a chance either, Peter.
I accept. For standing for Ontario Alliance, the point of this point was more just to have a position, be on the ballot.
Well, there's another reason why the Liberals may not have tried very hard here. If the Liberals had a strong candidate here, they would have assured the Ruth Ann Nuesteg would win, because if they had a very strong Liberal candidate in Niagara, it may have taken enough votes away from Gates.
Well, yeah,
that Ruth Ann would have been assured the win.
And remember, of course, that provincially we have had Liberals here in the past, like Kim Crater.
Oh, yeah. Niagara used to be basically.
And interesting thing is about Kim Crater, when I interviewed him, how he went out and got this seat, because prior to him winning the Liberal candidates, winning this seat for the Liberals, this was a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative riding.
No.
It's well, he felt it was. He felt it was.
It's never been a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative riding.
Yeah, he felt it was anyway. He felt it was very difficult to break the stronghold that the Conservatives had.
I doubt it. The Niagara region, in particular, has been mostly Liberal. There was a time not long ago that almost just everybody, the only guy, when Ted Salsey took over the council, he was the only Conservative. Everyone else was a Liberal. Wayne Thompson was a Liberal.
Yeah.
Cario, of course, was a Liberal. They were all Liberals. That has been shifting. We find that council's now more shifting towards the right, just like everywhere else. We've had Vince Cario was our federal guy for a very long time. No, I don't agree with that. And the fact that now we have 11 years with Wayne Gates would tell you that it's not really much of a Conservative stronghold. I mean, it's heading that way, I'm sure, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on. We talked last year about Kenya sending forces to Haiti. Now there's been the first death there was a gang battle going on in Haiti, and Kenya's had its first death in the area.
One of the big sources, we just talked about illegal immigration. One of the hugest sources of that illegal immigration is people from Haiti.
Yeah.
And almost everywhere else, people are moving because of they're economic refugees. They're looking for a better way of life, and they don't think they have much chance of getting in the legal way, so they try to get in illegally. That makes up the bulk of illegals. But Haiti is a different story. People are leaving there because it's a hellhole.
Yeah.
And it has been a hellhole for very long. So you will get all massive amounts of Haitians trying to leave that country and trying to make it to the United States or any other country, for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be happier in another poor country as long as there had law and order. Haiti has lost almost complete control of the government, almost complete control everywhere. The gangs, different gangs, and almost like warlords, basically, have divided up the country and have fought each other and the government. The people are terrified all the time. You can't be a taxi driver without having somebody come down on you and make them pay protection. You can't sell bananas without having some guy come up, put a gun in your face and say you got to pay protection. So the gangs are ruling the roost. And in this particular case, the United States, Canada, and other countries have kind of washed their hands of it. They've had a go at it and never be able to build anything out of Haiti. So they turned it over to Kenya in this particular case, and a few
Other African nations,
other African or Caribbean nations to help out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long battle, and unfortunately, one of their police officers getting into a battle, trying to respond by pleas of people in a certain area to help them out with their brutal gangs. They responded. Unfortunately, the police chief was killed in the gun battle.
Yeah, and they basically have said that the officer died a hero.
This is how tough it's going to be, and how tough it's going to be to attract more people from places like Kenya or Tanzania or even Jamaica or wherever to come and help there, because it's going to have costs. And this is one of the big costs here. The police chief from Kenya died while fighting street gangs.
And
it's going to have a cost because it's going to be bullet for bullet. The ones with the most bullets are the ones that are going to win. And do you really want to come all the way from Kenya, where you live your nice normal life as a police officer in Kenya, and then go to Haiti and get shot at all the time?
Yeah. And apparently the shooting prompted the quick response from a newly arrived El Salvador casualty evacuation team, which had arrived in Port-au-Prince earlier this month. And they flew in 3 helicopters to aid the mission in medical evacuation here. And they did everything possible to save the officer's life.
Yes. So it's a sad day. I hope that the Kenyans are not completely discouraged. They now have a hero to kind of look up to, but does anyone else want to be that kind of hero?
Yeah. And as you said, American, Canadian, and other forces have tried before.
Yeah, with little. I think that Bill Clinton has come out and taken responsibility for the extreme failure of his efforts. He eviscerated the economy of Haiti by reducing the local economy to nothing. What they did with Haiti, they made it a welfare state where it was totally reliant on food and anything else coming in from the country. It took away the job of the cobblers, the guys that made the shoes. It took away the job of the rice farmers, the people who grew rice. It was one of the IMF's disasters. They messed up Jamaica the same way. So Bill Clinton, who had, and other Western leaders at the time who had good intentions, actually weakened the economy of Haiti, which precipitated part of what's happening now.
but at least he recognizes, and shows that and is apologetic for that. Other Western leaders who were part of it are not.
No, they're not. But the reason why it was good that he's brought this out and taken the blame for policies that we would have thought would have worked.
Yeah,
didn't, because they did not consider the
Haitian economy.
Haitian economy and the way of life and the culture. And they
Yeah.
thought, okay, we'll just bring lots of rice in, we'll bring lots of food in, we'll bring lots of medicine in, we'll bring
But that
shoes.
wasn't the problem.
Yeah, so pretty much the person that made the clothes hasn't got a job. The person that made the shoes doesn't have a job. The person that grows the rice doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
And it made the whole populace dependent on a kind of as a welfare state, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad, but and I do hope Kenya makes some inroads into this. They were talking about a different method of policing. They were talking about trying to actually appeal to people on a more personal level, try to get away from the aid dependency to a more vibrant economy, if I remember rightly. But when they first went in.
Yeah. And I'm not so sure the fact that they're the same color makes a lot of difference here, but I think it might. All the other times when there's been intrusions into Haiti, it's been America or Canadians or French, maybe. They're white people.
White people, yeah.
They're different. At least they're the same color. They look the same, kind of. So maybe that helps a bit. Plus, it really Kenya is at a point where they can take on these world responsibilities, which is a real feather in their cap.
Yeah, it is.
Basically, they've shown responsibility in world affairs, and they are at that point in their history where they can do that, and so that's a point of pride, actually.
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you know, Kenya's economy is not exactly the most vibrant in Africa. In fact, they've been slipping more recently in their economic fortunes in Kenya.
Who hasn't been slipping economically?
Yeah, I mean, in comparison, they were about the fourth or fifth economy in Kenya at one point, and now they're about seventh or eighth. That's all. That's what I meaning.
Unfortunately, in this particular article, it doesn't name the officer's name. And in a different article I wrote it or read it did, and
Yeah.
But maybe we could report on that tomorrow. But Karen makes a point. How can you build an economy of teenagers? Yeah, they're very young.
Yeah.
Overall, and anyone that can gets out of that island. The opposite part of the island of Hispaniola is the Dominican Republic, and they've got a big wall, and they're keeping them out as much as they can. As soon as they catch one, they toss them back. So the Haitians are quite desperate, and unlike El Salvador, where the government has cracked down incredibly on gangs, and particularly gangs that ruled the country, have had a pretty good success at fighting back. But that's not always guaranteed, because the same process has happened in other countries where it hasn't worked as well. So it definitely hasn't helped in Haiti at all. But there you go. And anytime you have a country like that that's broken down like that, you're going to have huge waves of migrants. And let's talk about that too, because we've already talked about how migration has shifted the political the politics of Europe to the right. Is big time in the States. It's shifted that way. But these migrants that don't make it into the States, the Hondurans, the Haitians, other people of Central America, if they can't go up, they go down. So there's all kinds of illegals in Peru, in Chile, and countries of that kind. If you I talked to a person from Chile. He's married to one of my cousins, and he said that he can't even go home anymore because the crime rates have all gone up. People are scared, and that's because of these waves of migrants that have tried to get into the United States that way but couldn't. It was too difficult, so they come more south and they go into the relatively prosperous countries of Peru.
Well, Chile is a fairly prosperous country, one of the more prosperous in South America. Given, well, I was going to say given its size, it's quite a relatively low population, but it's a massively long and narrow country.
Yeah, well, they're suffering too for the same reason. Like those migrants that are moving into places that they can move into if they can't get as far as the States or Western Europe, and this is happening in Costa Rica, even Costa Rica, which is the most stable country in Central America. Costa Ricans are not the type of people that will leave their country to go somewhere else because they got a pretty good thing going where they are, but they find they have an influx of Nicaraguans. They have almost as many Nicaraguans as they have Costa Ricans. And they're stuck in the same situation. They don't like them, but they're the ones that do the manual labor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Niagara farmers are being urged to adapt to changing climate.
Yeah.
Take it away, Dave.
Yes. Well, this is a pretty good article. Wait till I get it up here. Being a little, have to read it.
Basically saying that Dave Phillips, who's forecasting hotter and wetter and wilder weather for the next 20 years, is despite the recent winter season that is local residents remembering a time when Niagara had sustained snowfall and extremely cold days. We're looking at warmer weather being the prevailing climate up to the 2050 at least.
Yeah. Now even the Republicans have come on board and recognizing that climate is changing, although they are loath to admit that it has anything to do with CO2 or fossil fuels. But what is very typical and what happens all the time on Earth is climate change for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
This guy, Dave Phillips, who by the way, has had the Order of Canada bestowed on him. So this is no lightweight, this guy.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. He is saying that there's going to be wilder weather for the next 20 years. Episodes of real dry periods, episodes of real wet periods. And basically he's not just saying that, it's disaster, we're all going to die. He doesn't say that.
No.
He says that we have to adjust our agricultural means by which we produce agriculture. We're going to have to plant crops that are better in long periods of drought or also.
Well, it makes sense actually, because at the end of the day, as a farmer, one has to be adaptive and grow the crops that are likely to be, to grow well in our local area, in our local climate. And if the climate is changing, and we're not going into the whys and wherefores of that, we just accept that the climate is changing. And, for example, we've seen that the temperatures have risen by 1.4 degrees on average over the past 70 years. Well, and the assumption is that they're continuing to do so. Well, that means, therefore, that we've got to adapt and change the type of product that we grow.
These are undeniable trends, and they happen. They happen throughout. Okay, take carbon right out of the picture. climate trends happen anyway.
Yeah. I'm not. And it's not debate where it comes from.
Yeah. The fact is, it is changing, and is like 99.999% due to more carbon in the atmosphere. Just about every climatologist will tell you that, because when they run the data over and over and over and over again, that is the only variable that makes this much difference. So we're going to look for a sudden high. The Great Lakes will not be as great, he says. Depleted aquifers and wetlands drying up, lightning strikes, less snow, more freezing rain, those things throughout the next 20 years. And he's been at it for a while. He's 80 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's not something that's just come lately for him. It's a lifetime of effort here.
Now, farmers are normally more conservative, right? But the Ontario Federation of Agriculture are the ones that invited him to speak and to share with them what weather expectations are happening. Nobody here is talking about carbon saturation or anything like that. It's just the reality of what's going to happen. So Drew Spoelstra, a Pembroke-based dairy and crop farmer, who is reelected in November as president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Like I say, farmers are much more likely to be conservative, and yet they are, has said in interviews and written interviews, and that climate change is real and the action must be taken to address the transforming environment. So if the Ontario Farmers Association or Federation of Agriculture, pardon me, is taking this seriously, I think everyone else should take this seriously. They have actually noticed things over the last, like if you've been a farmer for 20 or 30 years, you're going to notice trends. They have noticed trends, and they're looking for a little bit of guidance from a weather guy who knows what the weather's going to do, or what it appears the weather's going to do. So they're going to have to adjust their crop, adjust their way of doing things. And he says here, over the past decade, the agriculture community has been on the front lines, experienced the impact of climate change, says Phillips. In 2012, the third warmest spring in 70 years was experienced, and when on the last day of winter, the temperature hit 25 to 28 degrees. The public was happy. The golf courses were packed, but farmers knew it was.
I remember that. Yeah, the golf courses were packed well before the end of winter.
Yeah. So as he says here, the public was happy. The golf courses were packed, but farmers knew it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the fruit trees budded, blossomed 5 weeks early, and then got killed by cold snap.
Yeah.
And 2014, public learned of a new term, polar vortex. We'll see more of them. Now it's hard to think of that way, since we've had coming out of an old-fashioned cold winter with lots of snow. But in any case, these are the predictions of people that study the weather.
We've got ahead of us. This week has been is actually warmer. We had 10 degrees yesterday. The rest of the week is at least single-digit warmth. Question is whether we'll get rid of the snow before the next snowfall.
Yes. It's going fast, though. It's melting really fast. When you drive around, it looks like it's just rained.
Yeah.
I know. Especially at night when you drive around, it looks like the whole place is the roads were wetted after a massive storm.
There was a section, I was coming home last night in the dark, and there was an oncoming car, and there was a car parked to its right. And I'm like looking at the gap and thinking, can I get through there? You know what I mean?
And did you play chicken with the guy and rev up your engine?
I didn't play chicken with anybody. I got through comfortably enough.
Where's your sense of adventure?
No, playing chicken is not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to risk my car.
Oh, well. All right.
Right.
I would with somebody else's car.
All right. I think we can kind of call it quits at that point.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you do pray for peace. I don't know. It's so strange. But anyway, one last thing. We're in for it. Trump's pulled back on the tariffs. We're going to get hammered with 25% tariffs across the board. So is Mexico and Canada. Just as a last thing, Canada is
It's
looking for
nice.
allies in this.
Yeah,
Canada
nice to
is
be friends.
calling for the Canada is calling to the rest of the world to help fight the U.S. tariff regime.
Nice to be friends, eh?
Yeah.